Donald Trump and his statements, then what he said on a Sunday evening in Houston may be
yes.
exactly opposite of what he says on a Tuesday evening
Exactly.
in New York. So there is no guarantee
So-
that if he has stood
Right.
next to the Indian Prime Minister and endorsed him or spoken
I
in
wouldn't
favor
go so
of him.
far as to say that, but I think, yeah, I mean, so the internal discussions in the State Department or elsewhere in terms of what Mr. Trump might do when he's at the UN or about 370 should be dealt as an internal matter. That's what I'm saying as well. So I agree with him on that issue. But that is the backdrop of the UN meetings, right? So they both need each other for security purposes and for geopolitical and business purposes, right? Because the tariff war with China is not going well. His nuclear deal with Iran is not going well. His deal with North Korea hasn't materialized to anything. So he needed India. India is a bright spot for
There
Mr.
is no
Trump.
argument there.
Absolutely, India is a bright spot for Mr. Trump geopolitically and business-wise, and Indians are happy to comply with his requests.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. It's not like that America needs India. We are here for each other. We are here for
Right,
each other.
that's basically
it's a
what I
good
said.
friendship.
That's what I said.
It is a good chemistry between the president and the prime minister, which is good to have. And Pakistan will raise this question in United Nations. Let him raise.
Yes.
Pakistan, as on today, is totally isolated in the world. Only one country is supporting it, and that is China. Even the Muslim countries, majority of them are with India, with Modi. If you see in last few years, he has been awarded the topmost award of Saudi Arabia, UAE. When did it happen? So the history is being created here with our Prime Minister Modi ji. And let's give him 5 more years and we'll see what has happened to India.
Okay, one word on the political influence of the Indian American community, and do
It's
they function
growing.
as one force?
It's growing.
It's not a
growing.
monolith.
No, it's not a monolith, but clearly it's heavily tilted towards a Democratic platform right now. So you
Still.
have Kamala Harris running, you have Ami Bera in California, you have Ro Khanna in California, you have several other candidates, right, that are Tulsi Gabbard, who claims to be a Hindu American from Hawaii. She's also running. She's a big fan of Mr. Modi.
Yeah, she said
And
released
sent a tweet,
as well.
sent a
Yes,
Twitter
yes.
tweet message to him as well, even though she couldn't make it to Houston. So
Yeah.
I'm on her Twitter feed, so I read her messages as well. So yes, there is a growing sense of acceptance of India as a, a global power, as a global geopolitical power, but also a power that champions civil rights, civil disobedience, non-violence, egalitarianism, peace building,
Yes.
right? And we don't have a seat at the Security Council still after 70 years, but we are gradually working towards that.
But
Yes,
why
many-
we don't have a seat? Who is responsible that we don't have a seat? Let's not
there
go into
may-
the history and who is responsible.
there
I
may-
think
there
Mr.
may
Nehru
be
was
reasons for that.
responsible when we offered a seat.
Okay.
I mean, he politely said, let China, but we'll not go there.
Yeah.
We just went there, but that's all right.
So it was not by coincidence that Steny Hoyer, right, the minority whip, did quote Pandit Nehruji
Yes.
at the
Yes.
opening when he introduced
That
Prime
was
Minister
an
Modi.
interesting touch.
Yes, that don't forget, that in the tryst with destiny, that Nehru speech, right, on 14th August 1947, he did say to wipe every tear from every eye. Let's not forget that. So I don't think that was put in there by coincidence to remind the Indian diaspora. Of course, we're going through a different political time now, but not to forget that the founders of India were deeply steeped in equality, in civil rights, civil disobedience, and respect for
I
all
agree with
all
you,
people.
but I do not agree with the import of how it's coming out. Civil disobedience and non-violence is something that the Indian Prime Minister is also going to talk
Yes.
about, and the Indian government is also going to mention.
Sure.
I think this is the 150th
No,
year.
I'm only saying
of
that only
Gandhi.
because the UN Charter, bestows these rights on people around the world. We've been a champion of that for
Absolutely.
70 plus years, and we should continue to do that. And I think Mr. Modi, represents that
I think the
view.
government is taking a clear, hard look on appeasement versus standing up for equality. Standing up for minorities is fine. Appeasement is not, and that is the difference that has been made.
Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about, Palki ji. There is no more appeasement of minorities. It's equal right for everybody. We have started with Article 370, Uniform Civil Code. There should be one rule, one country. That is why how it is in America. I don't know, people complain about it. There's nothing to complain about. There should be one rule, one country. Why should there be a difference between Hindu, Muslim, or anybody else?
So to your question,
you are a professor of law, perhaps.
No,
you can throw more light on that.
No, but the question about Indian Americans gaining political force, yes, since the 1965 Immigration Act and Indians coming into the U.S. In large numbers in the late 70s, early 80s. Now that's clearly several generations behind us. Obviously, the political force is now slowly but surely gathering. Certainly on the West Coast, it's much larger. But you'll see more and more Indian Americans running, for office and gaining seats. So far, as he rightly points out, there are more Democrats on the Indian American side.
We had Governor of Louisiana, Bobby Jindal, and we want to see actually an Indian in White House in next 2 decades or so. The way we are moving, that's our goal. And we should have.
Right. We've also spoken about the contribution of the diaspora to the India growth story. Let's turn this around and say, how do Indian Americans or Indians outside, what kind of help or what kind of support do they need from the government of India to, in terms of the policy that, for instance, the US government may have that they would want shifted to their benefit? What can the Indian government do to make the lot of the Indian Americans better, although they are among the most well-off communities?
Yeah, I mean, if you compare us with China, right, in terms of being a Pacific power, China has a much stronger influence, if you say, in terms of policy, think tanks, or institutions of learning, funding for even policy initiatives or business groups and so on and so forth. So clearly that's...
Israel has.
Or Israel is another example you could use, yeah.
Yes,
the influence of the Israeli population in American society, or the Chinese American population in American society, is clearly much more significant. But we're a newer group, so so we have certainly things to catch up with.
Right.
I think one thing government of India can do for overseas citizens of India, right now there is a rule in India that if you spend more than 180 days in India, you have to pay their taxes for all over the globe. So especially if they want OCI, overseas citizen of India, to invest in Bharat, in India, they should increase that limit to 270 days. Because if you want to do business in India, definitely you have to live there and stay there. But you cannot be forced to pay taxes for your income outside India. So one thing they can do it, and that will help a lot.
Right. I'm going to thank you both. It's been a most engaging conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you,
Palki ji. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.